it's Yud Tes Kislev, which means there's 1 week exactly away from Yud Tes Kislev, which is the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. It's the New Year of Chassidus. And I have a rabbi, he's a Litvish. He comes from Chassidim actually, but he said a funny joke. I said, "Do you want to make up a bring?" And he said, "I'm not making a celebration because some guy got out of jail." But just a little history on Yud Tes Kislev. It's a very influential day. It's a very powerful day if you channel it properly. And it's one of these days I find that if you choose to ignore it, you only become depressed and only become. It's like denying Rosh Hashanah almost. I mean, lahavdil, but it's really a day if you're a chassid. Not to live with this day, you're really harming yourself, in my opinion. So what is it basically? Historically, Yalter was born in like 1745. He passed away around 1812. He's nostalgic. Somewhere in between there, he starts writing the Tanya. And spiritually, this was in 2 generations ago, in the times of Baal Shem Tov, who was born in 1698. So Baal Shem Tov was right after Shabbatai Tzvi and Jacob Frank. These were false messiahs who basically came to the world, announced that they were the Messiah. And Shabbatai Tzvi had, from a young age, had a grasp on Kabbalah like you wouldn't believe. And he was reportedly able, you can read, there's a book by Gershon Shalom on it, Shalom something on it, called Shabbatai Tzvi basically. And he knew Kabbalah like we know Tanakh. I mean, he knew what was going on. Apparently, he was able to do some very strong miracles and some very, very powerful things with this knowledge, with this esoteric wisdom, to affect changes in reality. And he actually got a very big following. At one point, he got married once, but she wanted a get. At one point, he made a whole ceremony of marrying a Sefer Torah. He said, "I'm married to the Torah." There's actually a guy in the Gemara who says, "What can I do about procreating? I love the Torah, and there's other people who will procreate, so why do I have to get married?" So he wanted to learn Torah the whole time. But anyway, he was so charismatic, he got a lot of people believing that he was the Messianic Redeemer. This is in the time of the Ottoman Empire. And towards the end of his life, he gets called over to the Sultan of Turkey, and he gets told, "Put on this turban publicly, showing that you're kind of converting to Islam, or I'm going to kind of kill you." And he puts on the turban, and many Jews actually converted with him. He still kept touch with the rabbis after that, and they still kind of went back and forth and talked about his mission and who he was and who he thought he was. But eventually he dies like every other man, and there's no world peace, there's no abundance, there's no end of economic disparity, so life went on. The thing was, there was a lot of Jews went astray, and not only the Jews, they had opponents. There was one big proponent, was some guy Natan the prophet, he called him. He was always on his side, pumping up his story and saying how great his master was. But he had a lot of guys who were really against what he was doing and what he was saying. And the reason was because after this, when he died, it's like the wind left. The wind left Judaism. And this is why it was in this kind of environment that the Baal Shem Tov was brought down into the world. And he was kind of to reinvigorate the average Jewish soul, as they saw it. At that time, there was a big dichotomy between the Torah scholars and the simple people, the farmers, the peasants who didn't know Hebrew, just knew the vernacular. And the Baal Shem Tov went around and encouraged them to pray and to connect to God in their own special way. And eventually, these people started becoming the religious masses. I mean, slowly but surely. But anyway, he would encourage everyone to basically to pray to God and acknowledge God. So when Baal Shem Tov came around, there was a big disagreement between him and the genius. They called him the guy from Vilna, the genius from Vilna, Eliyahu Kramer. And he said, "Look, after what happened to Shabbatai Tzvi, let's make a new understanding. You want to learn Kabbalah? I want you to be 40 years old, because he knew Kabbalah as a child. I want you to be married, and I want you to be firmly grounded in the Torah." These were things that he felt Shabbatai Tzvi was not. And except for maybe firmly grounded in the Torah, but he definitely wasn't married, and he definitely wasn't 40 years old when he knew all these secrets. He passed away very young, I think, Shabbatai Tzvi. Maybe not before 40, but anyway, but the Baal Shem Tov said, this is nonsensical. How about I just take Kabbalah and I make it into a doctrine you can live with? And he invented this thing called Chassidus. And Chassidus is basically, that's what they call applied Kabbalah. It's like taking the secrets of the Torah and basically affecting you and affecting your reality with them, so you're able to go into the world and affect changes in a seemingly dark and despondent place. So how was he? So what's Yud Tes Kislev? Yud Tes Kislev is basically, at one point, the opponents of within Hasidim. There was one group, eventually headed by Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and Shneur Zalman of Liadi was starting the Tanya, which was and became what's called by Lubavitch circles the Bible of Hasidus. So at one point he got arrested. They slandered him on many charges. One of them was that he was supporting a coup, or whatever. He was treasonous because he was sending money to the Ottomans, actually, who were then at the time in what was Israel, the land of Israel. And he established Kol Chabad, which is to help families live in Israel, help them, send them charity. He would write letters to encourage people to send money to them. So anyway, they arrested him, and he was in jail 53 days. He said one day for every chapter of Tanya that he wrote, and then he was liberated on the 19th of Kislev. And he came out, and he said, and he said when he was in jail, it was after the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid had disappeared from the world. He said they had visited him, and someone actually once showed a picture to the Rebbe of where he stayed in jail. And the Rebbe said he looked at the picture and he wanted to make sure that the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid can actually fit in there, because he said, I think it was the opinion that they actually physically visited him, even though they departed from this world. Basically, spiritually, Yud Tes Kislev was a commemoration, a celebration of the fact that what the Alter Rebbe was doing was correct and proper, and we were spiritually given the go-ahead to disseminate Hasidic doctrine, Hasidus to all the world. The movement started, according to the Baal Shem Tov, because he was told, he asked the Master, the Melech Mashiach, Master, when are you going to reveal yourself? When are you going to come? So he said, when your wellsprings are on the furthest corners, when they're outside on the furthest corners of the earth. So this is how we knew we had to spread Hasidic doctrine to everyone. This is what Shem Tov did for many years in seclusion before revealing who he was. Then afterwards by sending emissaries to all corners of the world. By Yud Tes Kislev, because the Tanya was so formatted and it was so direct and succinct and it was so ordered and structured in such a beautiful, clear, concise way, the other side of holiness really wanted to rise up and stop it. So they had him physically arrested, and he agreed to the incarceration, and he went, and there are many, many miracle stories, Yud Tes Kislev. At one point, the Alter Rebbe, someone asked the Alter Rebbe of a certain question about Rashi. He says, like, when Adam Rishon is in Gan Eden, so he says, Ayeka, after he does this sin, God says, where are you? So Rashi asks, God knows where a person is. So the guy asks the Alter Rebbe, and so he answers him what Rashi says. He says, I know Rashi says that to make a dialogue with a person, you generally have to introduce yourself. I don't know what the Rebbe says. So the Alter Rebbe asked him, do you believe that the Torah is eternal and affects every person, every generation? He said, yes. The Alter Rebbe was very happy because he realized that this is one of the things that Chassidic doctrine was about. This is why he was on trial. Once he realized that the guard had agreed with him that Torah is eternal, he knew that he was going to be set free eventually. And he told him that Ayeka is an eternal call to God, to every single man. Where are you? I've given you this many days. And the Alter Rebbe listed the man's age. This many days, hours, minutes on the earth, months, years on the earth. What have you done with them? So Yud Tes Kislev is basically, in our generation, now we're 7 generations later, according to the Chabad calendar. And there's so much more Chassidus written. And Chassidus is, there's a nice mimer called On the Essence of Chassidus. Basically, it says that there's pardas, there's 4 different levels of interpretation of the Torah, and then there's Chassidic doctrine, which can be infused in every single level. And Chassidic doctrine, what it does is basically it takes your understanding of Torah and it makes it personal and it applies it to you so that you see reality under a different lens, under a Chassidic lens. There's a saying in Hayom Yom that there was a certain time when every single thing a person heard or saw was could be used as a mode to help